Hey, this is Bishop George Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us for the Proverbs 31 challenge. Guys, this is day 22 of our challenge. Day 22 of our challenge. So, man, we've been doing this for 22 days. Guys, we only have a few more days of us gathering together and fellowshipping over the Word of God. So I'm so excited you guys have taken the opportunity to join me now on this particular challenge, man. It has been absolutely amazing. So we're so excited for that, guys. Thank you so much for your support, guys. And I know you're growing. I know you're growing. That's why we titled this hashtag Let's Grow Together. I know you're growing in the things of God. I'm growing. You're growing in the knowledge and the information of God. So we're so grateful for that. Guys, continue to keep going. If you know somebody that's on your staff and they hadn't started yet, encourage them to get started. Encourage them to get started. And let's grow together. Encourage them to get started. They don't have to go all the way back and read all 22 chapters to catch up. Just tell them to start right now, Proverbs chapter 22, and continue to read on through with us. Amen? So we're in Proverbs chapter 22. But guys, I want to take a step back. I'm going to take a step back. And today's lesson is going to actually come out of Proverbs chapter 17. I was going to teach this on last week, but I ran out of time in the last lesson that I gave you. But I think that this is so important. I think that this is really, really important when it comes to coaching, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to pastoring, when it comes to whatever endeavor that you're trying to accomplish or trying to do. I think that this is very important. I want to make sure that I cover this because here in this this chapter, the writer makes a direct contrast in something. And I want to make sure that I cover this because, you know, as you get into your season, I basically did this for coaches. When you get into your season, you're going to encounter this. You're going to encounter this. And how you handle it will determine the success and failure of your year. I've been on coaching staffs, man. I mean, some of the most brilliant minds when it comes to the game of football. And because of this one thing we're going to talk about today, it literally destroyed the staff, and people were at each other's throat, and we didn't accomplish a lot. We could have accomplished a great deal, but because of all of the negativity, because of all of the bickering and fighting and pride and egos and all of those things, we didn't get a lot accomplished. So I want to make sure that I cover this because as I was trying to move forward, I really felt a check to stop right here and make sure that we cover this. So guys, we're on Proverbs chapter 22. Don't forget that we're in Proverbs chapter 22. But today's lesson is going to come from Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 1. That's the only verse that we're going to look at. And let's look at that. It says, "Better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife." Better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife. And I titled today's proverb, today's lesson, Strife, the Silent Killer. Strife, the Silent Killer. Guys, this is very important, not just on coaching staffs, but I try to look at this as well when it comes to marriages. This is one of the things my wife and I, when we take people through premarital counseling, this is one of the areas we focus on, is this area of strife, because I've seen it destroy homes, I've seen it destroy marriages, I've seen this strife destroy families. So we want to make sure that we focus in on that. So we're calling this strife the silent killer. Here in this text, this is the first time you actually see Solomon making a contrast. Generally, he tells you if you gain wisdom, if you gain knowledge, if you gain understanding, it'll bring you in the company of great men. It'll bring friends to you, and it'll also bring wealth to you. Throughout the entire Proverbs, many of you, we've read that. With knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding, brings friends and wealth. When you look at Solomon, he had a lot of friends, a lot of wives, and a lot of wealth. He had a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding. But here, he makes a direct contrast. He's telling you, he said, it's better to have dry food and be alone than to have a house, than to have colorful, tasteful food and a family full of people or a group of friends, but within that group of friends is layered with strife. Wow, that's powerful. You got to get that. He's saying it's better. It is better. It is better for you to be alone by yourself eating a simple, dry piece of food, a dry piece of crust. Think about the most wonderful pizza that you can imagine, and then they cut that part off, and then they let that part sit outside all day. It's dry, it's tasteless, it doesn't have any type of texture to it, but he said it's better to eat that than to have the entire pizza around a whole bunch of friends, but that group of friends, you all are in strife. Mm-hmm. That is so powerful. That is the first time he ever makes a it's not a contradiction, but it's a contrast to the word. Because most of the times he tells you wisdom will bring friends, wisdom will bring money. But he's saying here, it is better. It is better to have dry morsel and quietness and alone, not have people around you, than to have feast with family we will feel the strife. It's better to be alone and by yourself eating dry food than to have a whole bunch of people around you. And it's a whole bunch of strife. Amen. That is powerful. So I want to talk about strife, the silent killer, and I want to tell you the two main goals of strife. Strife has two main goals. Two main goals of strife. Number one, it wants to divide. And then number two, it wants to conquer. Those are the two main goals of strife. It wants to divide and it wants to conquer. That's it. Write this down in your notes. If you don't remember anything else from this teaching, I want you to remember this. You can get more accomplished together than you can by yourself. I've seen this, man. I'm telling you. I've seen this in families. You know, the husband thinks he's the only one that's on the same page, trying to get out of debt, trying to move the family forward. The wife is going one way, he's going one way, and the enemy divides the home, and he ultimately conquers the marriage. I've seen this on coaching staffs, man. The head coach wants to go this way, but then you have other coaches on your staff think they know just as much as the head coach. And instead of them supporting the vision of the coach, whether you agree or whether you disagree, instead of you swallowing your pride, getting on the same page with the coach and say, you know what? Because one day you're going to have your own staff. One day you're going to be blessed. One day you're going to have it. So instead of you getting on the same page that we're going to move forward, we're going to conquer, we're going to continue to go, instead of you going to other, I've seen coaches create their separate agenda and start doing things by themselves. So this is live TV. John, I need you to call that number back. I'm sorry. That's the I know. Well, you know, we know what we got going on here. Okay. So I've seen this, guys. I've seen this. So what is strife? I'm going to give you a definition of strife. Oh, let me give you this. So strife wants to divide and conquer. It wants to create separate agendas. It wants to create separate focal points. One person got one particular goal and dream and vision where they want to take something. But then when you put strife in there, it becomes splintered. And everybody else trying to go their own separate different ways. And then it wants to conquer you as an individual. Not as a full staff, not as a full whole marriage, but he wants to conquer you as individuals, one by one, pick you off one by one. So he sows this seed of strife and discourse and disharmony to pull you apart. So what is strife? The definition of strife is this. Strife is selfish ambition that leads to contention and conflict. Strife is selfish ambition that leads to contention and conflict. Strife is manifested in 5 ways. Bickering, this is what we pretty much see on the surface. Number 2, selfishness, which is the number 1 cause of strife. It manifests in bickering. You see people just bickering all the time, bickering over small points, arguing small stuff. It manifests in bickering, but the number 1 cause of strife is selfishness. You got to have it your way. You are right. And it doesn't matter what the other person is saying, but you got to have it your way. And if it's not my way, I'm going to take my ball and go home. You remember the one we used to be on the on the basketball court back in the day, you know, if you didn't pick them on your team, they'll take their ball and go home. Or if they lost, their team lost, they'll take their ball and go home. That's selfishness. Number 3, competition. Number 4, bitterness. And then number 5, unforgiveness. So strife manifests itself in 5 ways. I just want to make sure I said that 5 ways. Bickering, selfishness, competition, bitterness, and unforgiveness. Now, there are 5 types of strife, and this is where we're going to end at today, because I want you guys to really search your heart after this lesson. Search your heart. Number 1 is obvious strife. You know, this is what we pretty much see with bickering, people arguing their points. But one of the ways that you can really actually see this obvious strife is when people begin to try to talk over people. You should never try to talk over somebody. And I always ask this question, when you're talking, are you listening or are you just waiting for your chance to speak? You're waiting for your turn. You know, I don't care what you have to say, but I'm next. And so instead of you actually listening and digesting and comprehending what the person is saying and trying to see what they're saying from their vantage point, instead of you trying to do it that way, you're rather just trying to insert what you want and how you want it and what you want to see. Bickering, obvious strife. It's obvious strife, bickering. Number 2, clinging to personal opinions to the detriment of the group. Clinging to your personal opinion to the detriment of the group. I'm right. You know, I see this all the time as pastors. You know, this is the number 1 reason I think churches split right here, is because they're right and the pastor that they're serving is wrong. And so since the pastor that I'm serving is wrong, I'm going to leave and start me up my own thing. And I'm not going to submit to authority. You might be right. There are times in this home I've had to discipline my son, Dylan. He's 9 years old, very smart, very intelligent. And one time I was disciplining him. He was right and I was wrong. But instead of him just coming out and saying, Daddy, you're wrong, he sit there, took the argument, took the correction, and then later that night he came back and said, Dad, this is what I was trying to say. And when I heard what he was trying to say, when I saw it from his vantage point, I apologized. I was so sorrowful. I was wrong. Please forgive that. Dad made a mistake. Most of the time, we want to be right so bad that we'll drive the entire vision of the staff off a cliff because we want to be right. And you end up sacrificing everything just for your own personal opinion or your own personal truth. You might be right, but is it time? And here's the thing. It's not what you're saying, but it's how you say, what you say, and the timing that you use. You can be right, but sometimes you have to swallow your pride and say, you know what? I know that this is the thing that is right, but I'm going to support what this person wants to do. Now listen, I'm not talking about anything immoral. I'm not talking about anything unethical. You got to stand up for that. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is decision-making. Decision-making on the staff, decision-making in the marriage, decision-making. That's what I'm talking about. So don't take what I'm saying out of context. Put it within the parameters of a staff, decision-making. Sometimes, put it in the context of a marriage. Sometimes when it comes to decision-making, the decision that you see could be the right thing to do. It could be. But what the other person said could be the right thing to do, too. So instead of you putting your pride and holding on in stubbornness to your position and refusing to let go and end up driving the entire relationship off a cliff. Instead of you doing that, you need to swallow your pride and say, you know what? I will submit and I will do what's right. Number 3, competition. The 5th type of strife is competition. Now, any competition is good. But what I'm talking about is self-serving, ego-tripping competition. You know, the person that's always got to highlight what they do, what they've done, who's the best, I'm this, I'm that, at the detriment of the group. Belittling the ones that are around them to make themselves look more important. That is strife. And number 4, bitterness. One of the things that I've seen when I look at this bitterness deal is this whole thing of silence. Silence. I'm just not going to say anything. You see what is wrong. You see what could possibly be better. And notice what I told you earlier. It's not the fact that you're not right or whether you're wrong, but 2 things: timing and how you say it. Timing and how you say it. So you can see something going in the wrong direction, and instead of you going to the source of the problem, correcting the source of the problem, you're talking around the problem. You're talking around it. You're being a talebearer. You're spreading rumors. You're spreading lies. And that undertone of strife is destroying the group. It's destroying the group. I've seen this in marriages. Instead of the one spouse sitting down to the other spouse saying, listen, let's talk this through. Let's talk it through. They don't talk to the person. They go to mom and them. They go to cousin them. They go to the person on their job. And then they surround their spouse with this cloud of strife. And then end up destroying the home. I've seen it on staffs. I've seen it in the workplace. Don't be an instrument of Satan. Don't be an instrument that he can use in his hand. Strife is a silent killer. It is destroying homes. It is destroying staffs. It is destroying marriages. So how do we overcome? And I'll end with this. Number one, bickering. Guys, listen. Learn how to listen. Remember I told you that obvious strife is when you see people bickering and fussing all the time. Don't be the person that got to be heard vocally. Sit down and wait for your opportunity to speak. Become a good listener and listen to what people are saying. Clinging to your opinion for the detriment of the group. Understand, I could be right. But understand the fact, you know what? I might be wrong. And try to look at the other person's truth from their vantage point. Number 3, competition. Understand, it ain't all about me. It ain't all about me. It's all about the goal, the vision of where the group is trying to go. And then lastly, silent is never a good thing. It's never a good thing. Talk, communicate, and listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I wanted to make sure that we get this lesson, guys. Make sure you continue your reading. We'll pick back up with Proverbs chapter 24 on Thursday, and that's where that lesson will come from. But I really had to park right here and talk to you about this thing called strife. Because I'm telling you, I've seen it destroy homes, marriages, staffs, workplace. Let's cut it off and live victorious. Amen? Any questions?
Question. I guess this is a personal question. How is an effective way to communicate something if you feel like you have a better idea? Or, if you're in a coaching staff and you feel like this idea will work better and your coach may be like, this is the way, but you might be like, not trying to combat them, but just give them a better
Excellent question. So, I've seen this when I used to teach school. And when I was teaching school, sometimes, teachers will have a better way of doing things. And so one of the things that they would do wrong is they would try to correct the principal or the leader in front of the entire staff. That's the wrong way to do it. What you need to do is write it down, write your ideas down, get a meeting with the leader of that organization. If it's a head coach, if it's a principal, if it's your husband, if it's a pastor, get a meeting with him. And when you go in, you don't go in saying, we need to do it this way. Mm-hmm. My mama said this all the time. You catch more flies with honey. Mm-hmm. I think she said it. Catch more bees with honey or flies with honey. I'm not. But sweetness. Remember, I told you in Proverbs chapter 15, a soft answer turn away wrath, grievous words stir up anger. Go in as you want to go in, and everything that you want to do, you want to make sure that it's for the betterment of the vision that's already in place. I'm not trying to do anything to contradict what you're trying to do. I'm here as a support. And if the person doesn't hear it, hey, take your notes and plan it for when you get your own staff. Any more questions?
That's it.
All right. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday.